Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of As I Live in Grief. We're all grieving, or if we're not, we may know someone who is, and we're trying desperately to be that support person for them. We're going to talk a little more today about sound healing, and we're going to hear a personal story, and then maybe talk about how indeed it maybe could help alleviate some of those devastating symptoms we all suffer when we're grieving. If nothing else, provide just an atmosphere for some meditation, for some reflection or introspection. And this is certainly not something specific to grieving, but it's a modality that I recently have become more aware of, and I'm digging in my normal research, and I'm finding this absolutely fascinating. So, with me today is Lana Ryder. Hi, Lana. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, definitely. Before we get started, and I've been known to ask some pretty simple, I call them toddler questions, so don't be surprised. A little bit of your background.
Yes, I was born to a physician nurse mother, and so that really started a career for me in her womb. I don't know that I ever looked at it that way until I was well into my 50s, but come from a very musical family and also health-oriented professionals. So all through my life, I've been exposed to a lot of different types of music and different types of healing. I was born and raised in South Central Pennsylvania and had lots of wonderful opportunities to be exposed to all kinds of live music through my mother and through my family as I was growing up. But my interest always seemed to go in the direction of healthcare. Even as a very young woman, I got interested in herbal medicine and started looking at that and studying that when I was 18, 19 years old. So through the course of all these decades later, it's just grown and expanded. And after a time of 25 years in our traditional medicine or allopathic medicine, I found myself wanting to dive deeper into holistic medicine. And so for the past almost 30 years, that's where I've been. And learning and educating myself, taking a lot of different courses and classes, how we can heal ourselves holistically, mind, body, and spirit.
That is absolutely fascinating. Now I think I may have to have you back for another episode on herbal medicine. At any rate, did you find in your experimentation that the sounds in general were helping you? And how did you make that determination?
Well, I was working as a massage therapist. That was the first education that I took when I decided to leave allopathic medicine. And it was through working as a massage therapist that I joined our local hospital's wellness center. They were getting ready to open this holistic wellness center. And the medical director of the center brought in Dr. Mitchell Gaynor to speak to us for the kickoff of the opening of this center. And what I loved about that was I had been looking for a way to incorporate music in a more healing way, a more specifically healing way, than just having nice music playing in the background while I was giving someone a massage or, craniosacral therapy or polarity or whatever modality I was using. So when Dr. Gaynor came and spoke to us, the really cool thing was that the night before, the medical director had announced who he was bringing in to speak to the staff and to the public as we would open our holistic healthcare center. I found a book by Dr. Gaynor called The Healing Power of Sound. So when I went into the meeting the next day and Dr. Rogers announced that he was bringing in Mitch Gaynor, I was like, oh, it's a sign. Because the book by Dr. Gaynor, first of all, he was chief oncologist at Strang Cancer Center and taught at Cornell University. And there he was, an MD using crystal bowls and metal bowls or Himalayan bowls in treating his terminal oncology patients. So with my background training in allopathic medicine, I just thought that was perfect. So that propelled me into the studies of how could I use sound, voice, and music as a healing modality or a complementary medicine for my clients and patients. That was how I got interested in it. And the only thing I could find at the time was an online course. There wasn't a whole lot available in studying sound therapy or sound healing. So I took that. I had bought a small Himalayan, or some people call them Tibetan bowls. That's not really quite the correct name, but they are becoming known as Tibetan bowls. So I bought a small Tibetan bowl and a maybe medium-sized 14-inch crystal bowl, and basically was mimicking what I had seen Dr. Gaynor do with my clients. And even though I really didn't know very much at the time, I saw with my massage clients that it could affect them. It was complementing and enhancing what I was doing with the massage. And that, of course, just made me want to know more and study more. I didn't want it to be just woo. I wanted to know the science of it. That was important to me. And not to discount the things that they were. So from there, I just kept finding different teachers to study, such as Dr. Kay Thompson Liu. I took a voice bioanalysis course with her, which was using your voice and a voice print to see perhaps what frequencies or notes that we are either deficient in or have excess of. And then all of her case studies, and even as I started using it, I saw, there's something to this. This works. I don't know if I can explain it, but I see it's working. So I had that anecdotal evidence. And of course, then some people will say, well, the power of suggestion, the placebo effect is very real. But at that point in time, I didn't tell people anything to expect. And with the voice print, you couldn't really do that. So I started seeing how this was working. And again, I just continued to study and look for teachers. And I finally found some really good ones. Both of them were ethnomusicologists, both PhDs, and they had worked with sound for many years. And that was Alexandre Tanu and Mitch Nur. And so they set me on the right path, and I had to unlearn some things I had learned from some other teachers who meant well, but were just kind of passing on some misinformation that they weren't aware that it wasn't quite the truth. So it brought me to where I am now. And I still take classes from them. If it's not in person, it's on many others as well. I mean, there's a big long list, so I won't name all of them. But Alexandre and Mitch, they were the two really set me straight. I had some unlearning to do, and as I teach sound to my students, I pass all of that information on to them.
The more I speak with people like yourself and others I have met through the same path, the more excited I get about sound. And I want to make a quick comment before I go back to the questions that everything you said just provoked. But my quick comment, you mentioned placebo effect. that, well, there's placebo effect. So what if there is? If it helps, it helps. I don't care if it's placebo or otherwise, but if somebody gets some relief, that's what we're looking for. So that was my quick comment on the placebo effect. One question I wanted to ask, and you've used the term allopathic, which I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with homeopathic, some of the others, but could you just kind of help me understand what allopathic means?
Sure. That is just our traditional, like, Western medical system, our healthcare system here in this country, and others, that look at a more science-based, Tonian type of perspective on how we.
Okay.
I just want to say though about the placebo effect. What I've found with that, we hear the quote from Jesus, who said, "Physician, heal thyself." And so if we believe, not hope or beg, but if we believe and envision that it happens for us, I have found, not only personally in my own life, but in the lives of other people that I work with, as well as family and friends, that this works. So yes, as you said, the placebo effect, whether it is this kind of a made-up type of thing and the power of suggestion, or there really is something to it. It works. So that's the bottom line.
I agree. So don't discount it. Don't rule out placebo effect. And don't let someone talk you into believing something that isn't going to make any difference. If it helps, it helps. However you got there, that's the important part. You got there. Okay, let me see. Where do I want to start? Well, let me first relate to you how I first got intrigued with sound. I was in Dallas, Texas, visiting my younger daughter, and we went to a crystal shop for the very first time in my life. And I picked out a few crystals that I felt drawn to. I was doing some research in the line of healing crystals and the power of crystals. And when I went to check out, they put my crystals in a small bag, and then they turned around, and behind the counter there was a large bowl. It was metal, and they kind of rubbed this mallet type thing along the rim, and I heard this sound that resonated deep within me. It was a whoa moment. I couldn't believe I wasn't just hearing the sound, I was feeling the sound. So I asked about it, and they mentioned that they cleanse the crystals before they leave the shop because so many other people may have handled them, etc. And that's just their philosophy. And I understood and accepted that. But as soon as I got home, I had to delve a little more into the sound. And it's taken me over a year to find people like you, Lana, and some others that I've spoken with, Rich, Ryan, I'm going to be speaking with Allison, I believe, and Duff. And it's taken me over a year to find this group of people that I feel can lay it on the line for me and can give me information that I can trust and take to do my personal research beyond that. I have scheduled and a sound bath for myself, and I can't wait. And I've gotten my daughter Stephanie interested as well. So on that note, there are so many ads out there now, and we all know on Facebook, if you start to think about something, the ads start to appear. I know it's all this AI, but it just boggles my mind. So there are all kinds of classes and opportunities out there. Is there anything someone might experience just attending a random sound bath event coming up? Is there anything that could harm them or be negative?
Well, first of all, I'll give a shout out to all those people you mentioned, and I've learned a lot from Rich. Good.
Mm-hmm.
As far as any precautions or side effects from sound healing, there are some precautions, like someone has a pacemaker, you don't want to put a ball right on that area, or anywhere they have implant or kind of replacement, joint replacement. If someone is wearing hearing aids, of course you don't want to put any sound too close to their ear. If anybody is recently a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, there are precautions to take with that. In some sound baths, they like to have lights going. Of course, flashing lights can trigger seizure disorders, so there's that. Those are the basic things that come to mind right off the top of them. Many people can go out and buy these instruments. They're not difficult to sound or make sounds with them, and they have little or no training. So I like to let people know, well, there are some things you should know, you really should know, not only the precautions, but also to give the people who are coming to you a maximum experience. So once in a while, I've had twice, I've been into the sound healing for like 20 years. In giving these sound meditations or sound immersions, or the popular term now is sound baths, I usually don't play like the crystal balls too loud, because I was starting to say, a couple people have come up to me at the beginning of these group sound events, and they see the crystal balls and they say, "Oh, I see you have crystal balls. I hope you don't play them too loud, because I had to leave the room at the last one I was in. It gave me a headache," or, those kind of things. Not that they were harmful to any great degree, but they were uncomfortable or annoying. So there are things that need to be learned about the best way to play these instruments. Certainly when you go from using one instrument to the next, you want to segue gently into it, because anything that's sudden, it doesn't even have to be loud, it can be a sudden change. Our reptilian brain is programmed to the startle effect, okay? Because it's like, what's that? Something's different. What? Mm-hmm. It's a protective device built into us. So that's something else people need to know if they're going to be using sound. Does that answer the question?
It does, and prompts many more. So is it fair to say that if you want to have a one-on-one healing session with sound and you find a practitioner, is it normal for the word reputable, but I'm going to use it anyway, for someone who is extremely trained, I'm not going to say certified, because there is no certification in sound healing. You can have a certificate for completing a training session, but there is no certification or license for sound healing. But is it fair to say that someone who is very well experienced and does this professionally and has done it for years might ask you some of those initial questions? Do you have a pacemaker? Do you have any artificial joints? Like questions like that?
Now, of course, I'm coming from that, medical background and training, and then also as a licensed massage therapist, our intake forms included some of those questions. All right. And so when I teach my students sound healing, they know that there are things you need to say up front and make the client or the person you'll be working with, or even a group of people, to keep in mind. These are things to be aware of, and they're important considerations. Some of the, as well as being trauma-informed, my students have to have a trauma-informed workshop before they can graduate. And I imagine you've already talked with Rich Goodhart, because those sound like his words. There's no certification. You can give
You're
a
right.
certificate. I mean, anybody can give you a certificate for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because someone says, I'm a certified sound healer, that may or may not mean something. What I tell people is, look at where they got their training. See who they studied with. See how many people they've worked on individually. A lot of people, like I said, they want to buy these instruments, and then they start holding group sound, and they might sound nice, and for the majority of people, they're fine and they're relaxing and they're a good thing. But you still need to be trained and understand what to do if someone in that group has these issues or it triggers a trauma response. These are important, and it's important for those of us who are truly serious about bringing sound into mainstream, that people understand. These are not toys that we're playing with. These instruments, whether it's the metal bowls or gongs or tuning forks or the voice, the chimes. There's so many different instruments right now. And we're not music therapists. That's a whole other thing. I had one woman, I know I'm digressing, but I had one woman on Facebook one time, and she commented on one of my posts, "Oh, I do what you do, only I call myself a music therapist because I use music too." And so I asked her, kindly, gently, are you a music therapist? Do you have your degree in music therapy? And she said, "No, I just use music when I see my clients." And so hopefully that was a good thing for her to realize. You can't call yourself a music therapist just because you use music in your sessions. Of course, music is organized sound, but that doesn't give us license to, call ourselves a music therapist. There's a huge difference.
Right.
So anyways, yeah. So, and music was a strong connection for me with my mother. She was a professional musician from the time she was 11, 12 years old, playing during the Great Depression with her father's band. And so music for me, I started hearing in the womb. And it was through that and through that music that helped me through the grief with my mother. I don't know if you were ready to go there or not, but that's just what came up.
That's a great place to go. Let's talk about the grief with your mother. Did sound help, and how?
Absolutely. When I first got into sound, my mom was still in her right mind. The dementia hadn't gotten to her at that point. And her comment about it was, because she went with me to several of the venues where I spoke and taught people about. And she said, "Well, that's very nice. Those are nice sounds, and I see where it could work, but I think music does the same thing." And of course, I knew she had a point, because music was equally important to me. I was in music ministry and saw the power of music, sometimes greater than the spoken word. Music sometimes reaches in where just talking does not, because there are a number of different factors there. But so when she started getting a little bit of anxiety when her dementia started, and at first she wasn't diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which we know is one kind of dementia. There are many different kinds, but she heard me using one of my metal bowls, and she said, "Oh, what was that? That's one of your bowls," or something like that. And I said, "Yes." And so then she seemed interested in it. So I gave her the bowl, and I said, "Here, you can tap it or rim it to make it sing." And she did. And I was so touched by that, because before she just kind of, well, that's nice, but, I prefer my music, which was fine. So I was so touched by that. And I thought, wow. So something's changing in her brain, her attitude, her feelings about how the just plain sound and the harmonics within the bowl affecting her. And as she got worse, this went on for 8 years before she passed, and when she would stay with me at my house, she would use the bowls. If she saw one sitting there, and I have them, say, all over my house, but I have them in different rooms in my house, and she would pick it up and she would just hold it, and it was very calming for her. Now she was an organist and jazz organist. She played her music right up until 4.5 days before she died. When the day she went into the hospital, she was still trying to play on the organ. So when I saw what it did for her and how calming it was, I thought, I'm going to try using this more with some of my patients or clients who have these dementia issues or memory loss. And I knew it was calming. I knew just to hold the bowl and strike it and listen to those sounds was calming, as was all the other instruments for me. And so that was one of the last gifts that my mother gave me, was showing me how it doesn't have to be organized sound. It doesn't have to be music per se. But these simple sounds are very grounding and balancing.
Sadly, and I hate when this happens every time, but our time is running out. So before I sign off, I want to turn the microphone over to you and let you speak directly to our listeners that are actually around the world, and tell them more about what services or training you might offer. If you've got books out there, whatever you would like to let them know. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thanks again for having me. I guess the first thing I would say is, as far as what I offer, is how everything has been honed down to me actually opening a sound school. And it's local. It is all in person. You can learn some things online. There are many good classes and courses online, but the advantage of learning in person is, of course, you have the use of all the instruments. You have the instructors there overseeing you. You have that interaction. You have that bonding. And you learn many things in person that you can't learn, virtually. So the Sound School is a 6.5-month program, and that is here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I also have written 2 courses, Reiki Sound and Reiki Voice, and they are curated specifically for Reiki practitioners to learn how to begin using sound or voice in their Reiki practices. I have written a couple books, but they're just self-published. I have a couple of those. I did go to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition back in 2010 because I thought nutrition was something I needed to learn more about. So I have a book called Sound Nourishment, and it's using sound and nourishment as a healing. And also Songs of the Morning Light, which is more my sharing the experiences I had in using sound with both my mother and my father's passing. So I thank.
Sounds interesting. How could people reach you?
My website's probably the best way, and that would be soundwisehealth.com. Soundwisehealth.com. I'm on Instagram as Soundwise Woman, and Facebook is Soundwise Health, or my personal page, Lana Ryder, Ryder. Probably the best ways.
Okay, I appreciate that. Listeners, as always, contact information will be posted in the podcast notes and on our website. And as always, if you want to reach out to her, you're also welcome to reach out to me, and I will connect you. We've learned a lot today about sound healing. And one of the things I want to impart, since I label myself as an eternal skeptic, is if, in fact, we have to be careful if we have certain physical issues, if you will, like artificial limbs, pacemaker, etc. If we have to be careful when considering sound healing, that to me means there's something there on a scientific basis. That just helps me feel more confident that there's really something to this. For me personally, I'm going to delve a bit deeper. I want to know, I want to feel the sound to the depths of my body. And I'm looking forward to that experience. For everyone out there listening, I hope we've answered some questions. I hope we've prompted some questions, enough so that perhaps you'll consider maybe sound can help me feel a little bit better. So until next time, take care of yourselves as we all continue to live and grieve.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asilivandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.